Welcome back, everybody. So did anybody learn one thing that was like the whole goal of that, even though it took about 25 minutes, was one, to get to know our classmates so you feel more comfortable, two, to make some connections so you have people to ask questions to, and three, like also to be encouraged by other people. Did anybody learn? You don't have to say who it was, but can anybody give an example of something that they heard from one of the students that really inspired them or encouraged them this morning? Was anybody inspired at all? Or is everyone's like, oh, everyone else sucks. I'm the only one here that's here for a good reason.
Okay.
No, I think the camaraderie is very inspiring.
Awesome. Was there anybody that had a really cool reason for wanting to go to law school? Pretty much everybody, right?
Everybody.
Everybody. Yeah, I know that's the goal. Is everyone's like, no, it's really encouraging to be around people that also want to go to law school really bad and have a really good reason for wanting to go.
And I love too, just learning, we're all from so many different backgrounds and age groups and our goals and everything. And it's cool to hear that too.
Absolutely. I think the diversity of the class is what makes it so valuable, honestly. This is a really diverse class. So real quick, did everybody get a chance to do practice test 44? If not, did everybody know that it was homework at least?
Yes.
Okay. Did everybody submit it? I didn't, a lot of people submitted it this morning, so I decided not to do a running check on it yet, in case there were a couple people. So this is where I'm going to put a lot of the resources from class. I'll still email it out, but I think it's easy whenever everything's in one place. And so if you went to my website or this link, or if you do go to like just realllygrit.com and you click on the sidebar and go to LSAT resources, it shows up as bootcamp resources. So this is everything just for this class. Oh no, why is that? And then, so where you were, and the reason I do this is it makes it easier for me instead of a Google form to do forms this way, because then I can easily keep track of everybody in one Excel sheet. So I put these all into an Excel sheet. So if you went to the background or the website, one, if you haven't been to one of my classes before, I did do an LR class back to the basics. So you're able to watch this. And then at the end of this session, if you want to leave, I am going to do a little bit of review at the end. And so I kind of changed the order of the questions we're going to do today instead of starting with main conclusion so that we could make use of everybody's time. And then here's where if you have not yet, this is where I would like you to put your scores. And this is where we're going to keep track of process. So if you didn't do this already, put in what your score was for 44 and then how many you got correct on each section and submit it. And that's all you have to do. Does anybody have any questions on that? Oh, and here's Cora's video. Is that all good? Okay. And so then, for example, for part one, for today, I uploaded some stuff already. I am going to update this a little bit for how far we get, but I put the documents that we're going to use for homework are here. So you just click on them and they're here. And then we're going to talk about inference versus flaw. And I found a really good video that I put here. And then depending on where we get to, I'm going to put some more stuff in here, but under like must be true questions, I'm going to put videos and things that just to help you in the meantime as well. Just to give you an FYI there. If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, but now we can go ahead and get started. So first things first, so some background information. What is an inference and what is a flaw? This is one of the key differences on the LSAT. Normally I start with what is an difference between an argument and a statement, but I thought I would change it up today. Who knows what an inference is?
Isn't inference a suggestion?
That's what, no.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because an inference, now I'm trying to walk it through my head of you're trying to infer, you're thinking about what the author should say next, or.
What does infer mean on the LSAT?
I'm trying to remember now.
Must be true.
Yeah, what? Must be true. Must be true. Well,
must be true.
That is yes, that's the question type. However, that you would ask it, but what does inference in general mean? Like if I saw, what if we saw it on a reading comp question, or what if we just saw it in a passage and it said the word infer? What does it mean?
Assume.
Trying to say.
A few premises lead to a conclusion.
Conclusion.
Yes, infer means conclusion. I feel like my education failed me growing up, because growing up, inference in science class always meant make an educated guess.
Yes.
Well, on the LSAT, that's what you were leaning towards, Cora. You were leaning towards common sense inference. No. LSAT inference means to conclude. So if you see it anywhere, that means like, what can we properly conclude? A lot of people get these questions wrong, especially on reading comp, because they pick too strong of answer choices rather than what must be true, which people that said must be true questions, you were on the right track. So how does an inference vary from a flaw? Or why is this important?
We raise our hand.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Mel.
Oh, I was going to say, like, because a flaw to me is more like finding like the potential gap within the stimulus versus like the inference is more like the conclusion base, like finding the conclusion. So like
so on the LSAT, like we have our stimulus, correct? And our stimulus is either a statement or an argument. And if it's a statement, that means that we can infer something from it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Where if it's an argument, that means it has a conclusion, correct? And are most of the arguments on the LSAT flawed or valid?
Flawed.
Flawed, yes. So this is this big picture. We're still talking big picture here. This is what's so important to recognize is even strengthen, weaken questions, sufficient assumption questions, necessary assumption questions. We're going to dive into all of these in the upcoming classes, but all of those questions are flawed, correct?
Correct.
Because if we can strengthen it or we can weaken it or we have to have assumptions, it has to be flawed, because if it was valid, we wouldn't need to do those things, or we wouldn't need to strengthen a valid argument. Like if I said the sun always sets in the east, therefore tomorrow the sun's going to set in the east. That is a valid argument, correct? I don't need to strengthen that argument by saying the sun has never not set in the east. Like that does nothing for it. And so that's how we know the difference between the two. And so we're going to talk about inference and flaw as we work through these question types. So if you still are kind of like, oh, I don't know why this is important, or a little bit confused, that's okay. I just wanted to give some big picture before we move into some specific question types. So this is going to be a little bit of review for people. However, I like to break up, these are the only question types I believe in that are listed here. So there's not that many, and we're going to cover them throughout the classes. But I like to break them up into two categories, bottom up and top down. Has anybody heard of this before?
Yes.
No? Excellent. This is an LSAT demon thing. I did not create this, so I don't want to take credit. I just love it. Has anybody else other than Mel heard of it before? Cora has. Oh, way to raise your hand, Cora. Carolina, Gina.
I was like that because of you.
Yes, excellent. Okay, I do talk about this a lot. And so we're going to start with, today, we're going to start with must be true and most strongly supported questions. And then we're going to do main conclusion questions. But then instead of staying in this top-down category, we're actually going to move and spend a good chunk of time on bottom-up questions. So who has an idea of what might be the difference between bottom up and top down?
Is it for bottom up, you're finding support from the answer choices?
Excellent. Yeah. Was that Gaia or?
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, good. I'm glad you're able to. I know you're going to be a little bit late. Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, I was in the car. So.
Perfect. Bottom up questions are ones. So we have our stimulus, we have our question stem, and then we have our answer choices. These are the ones that we get to bring in new information. So whether it's so you can see here as with strengthen and weaken or sufficient assumption questions, we get to bring in new information to support our conclusion. I love spending a lot of time on these at the beginning because these tend to be the ones that people struggle with the most. I see a lot of head nods. Most people, not all, I actually was the opposite. I struggle with must be true and most strongly supported, but most people tend to struggle with these the most because you have to bring in the new information and you have to think outside the box a little bit. And sometimes you're afraid of like, well, why do I get to bring in new information now, but I don't always. And so we're really going to create that line. And these are the questions too that we want strong answer choices for. And once again, we're going to cover this when we get to them. I'm just painting the big picture. But before we focus on those, we are going to cover most strongly supported and must be true and main conclusion first. Does anybody have any ideas why we're going to cover these questions first? Any ideas why, did I just randomly, Gina?
Well, isn't it because the majority of the LSAT questions are these types? Percentage wise or no?
No.
I was going to say that those three are so similar because the supporting must be true conclusion. I mean, you're looking for the same information with all three of those when it comes to your going back into your stimulus for getting your answers.
Yes, I believe you're very, very close. So, Cora, I'm sorry. Yes, Selena?
I think the reason why you want to start with conclusion, just because of what you always tell with me, is you want to train us to find the main conclusion of stimulus first. Because if you know the main conclusion, you can answer the other questions.
Yes, you have like the main conclusion. This is the most important question type and the most important exercise. Typically, I start with this question type, but since I've worked with a lot of you before and I did the back to the basic classes, we're going to cover it at the end. Like I said, you can leave or stay, but we're going to start with most strongly supported and must be true, because these are the what is different about these two question types versus the others. There's something very different about these two.
Isn't it the percentage of how much it's true? Because I know most strongly supported doesn't have to be 100%. It could be like 99%.
99. 90%. I was dying. I would put my money on it. No, just kidding. Yeah. No, that is factual. However, that's not why these two are different than I'm not saying like what's different between these two questions. I'm saying why are these two question types different than all the other on the board here?
Isn't it?
I believe.
Sorry, isn't it that most strongly supported questions, the conclusion is in the answer, and the premise itself is what supports what the conclusion may be?
I think you know it, but the explanation is just a tad off. So must be true and most strongly supported. This is the 10% of the time that we're given a statement rather than an argument. And so why is that important? Is that important to know?
Yes, because I think that saves on time. You're not trying to look for a conclusion and you're not trying to look for an argument.
So so 90% of the LSAT is argument based, correct? And if we have an argument, that means we have a conclusion. Are we all on the same page there? Yes. Awesome. And so 10%, these are just my own numbers, so they're not factual. So like, don't quote me on these in like the New York Times, but I think they're pretty accurate. 10% of stimuluses are statements. And so that means there's no conclusion. And so 10% of the questions are going to be these two-ish. And that means that we're finding an answer choice that has to come from the stimulus. So while these top-down questions, all of them, we're finding something from the stimulus and the answer choices, these two are different because they're just statements. There's no conclusion. Every other question type, the main conclusion matters. I mean, not that I guess you could have a must be true question and it did have a conclusion. It's not very common, but these ones are the ones that we want to pay attention to the extreme detail, and we want very mild answer choices. And so this is why we're going to go in this order for this class. is we're going to focus on first on these two questions, followed by conclusion. And then we're going to go up to the bottom ups. And then we'll finish off with the rest of the questions in the top down. So I don't want to confuse people by thinking, oh, well, why are we not doing all then the other? Does it make sense of why we're going in this order? Perfect. So must be true and most strongly supported has a lot of conditional statements. What are conditional statements? Go ahead and raise your hand if you think you know what a conditional statement is.
How do you raise the hand?
I don't actually know. Gina told me it was
You go to participants.
You go to participant.
Yeah. It gives you that option to raise your hand.
Oh, okay.
Nicole, are you asking for the if, like if the sufficient, like if this, then this?
Yes. So conditional statements. What are the two options in a conditional statement? We have what kind of conditions?
You got your sufficient and necessary.
Sufficient, necessary.
Sufficient conditions and necessary conditions. Are these the same things as sufficient assumptions and necessary assumptions? No. Did it take anybody else a long time into their LSAT studying to realize that these were different things, or was it just me?
No, it took me a while.
It took me a while to understand it.
Excellent. I did not realize that conditions, I think I knew, like if you would have asked me straight up, if I knew it, I think I would have been able to explain it, but I never actually grasped the concept that sufficient and necessary conditions don't necessarily mean sufficient and necessary assumption questions. And so I want to talk about them together just so that we can see the differences between the two, even though we're going to do these question types later. Sufficient and necessary conditions can be in any question type, and it's just the wording. So what is a sufficient condition? Jemmy?
If that is true, the necessary automatically becomes true.
Yes, if this, then this.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yep, if, then, yep. So typically how we write these, even though I'm not a huge diagrammer, is if A, then B. Who can give me an example? I want everybody, even though this is basic, to go ahead and write down on your piece of paper or just think in your head your own sufficient necessary conditional statement. Bonus points for creativity.
You want us to put it in the chat or just write it down on our piece of paper?
Just write it down. We'll have a couple people share. So raise your hand if you would like to share. All right, Jemmy, what do you have?
If I attend Nicole's Bootcamp, I get a good score.
Oh, yes, excellent. Of course, if you come, it's sufficient for getting a good score. Absolutely. So I like to think of this as if sufficient ends in a T. And so I like to think of the T as a trigger or an arrow. Trigger starts with T, or if you draw your T across, it triggers. So that's the arrow. So if trigger, sufficient trigger. Some people like to think of sufficient as enough. So Jemmy, with his statement, he said, if I attend Nicole's boot camp, that is enough for me to guarantee me a good score. What else? Who else has an example? What other examples do we have? Gina?
If it is Friday, we will have cocktails by 3 p.m.
Ooh, excellent. I'm on board with that. We should have a get to know you class happy hour where people come and we'll study, we'll just talk.
That was for
Hey, I'm all for that.
I think that would be fun. And just,
that was for
complain about LSAT. Okay, so this is probably a lot of review for a lot of people, but this is a really good thing to review. For those of you that, let me see, someone said something in the chat. If I live in Atlanta, then I'm from Georgia. Excellent. Okay, good job, Cora. Okay, so last thing on these, what is a contrapositive? Jasmine, do you know what a contrapositive is?
I believe so. So contrapositive is if A equals B, but B doesn't equal A.
Excellent. So this, if there's anything that you take away from today's lesson that you're going to apply to logical reasoning and you're going to apply to games, it is contrapositives. Everybody, even I can mess up contrapositives when I start going fast.
Me too.
And so this is really good review. So we're saying if we do not have B, then we cannot have A. Because what do a lot of us do when we start going fast? What do we do instead?
You end up just reversing it and forgetting to negate.
We say, if B, then we will have A. But that is not true, right? So let's use Gina's awesome example, for example. She said, if it is Friday at 3 p.m., then we will have cocktails. So does that mean that if I'm having a cocktail, it's Friday at 3 p.m.? No. But can we say that if I'm not having a cocktail, then we at least know for certain it's not Friday at 3 p.m.?
And I heard one time, just to share, it was a funny way to remember it. Does everybody remember the Missy Elliott song, Reverse It? So if every time you see a conditional, just think of that song, reverse it, and then you negate it.
Wait, is it reverse?
Yeah.
Like reverse negate, reverse.
Yeah. So that was just a funny thing. And I did that when I was taking the LSAT last Sunday, is I sung it in my head while I was doing a test.
Okay. So we're going to talk about this more in the future. I just wanted to give a basic rundown on these conditional statements for our starter. Here are some indicators. If you want to go ahead and screenshot this, you can, of what, because there's more ways to introduce sufficient and necessary conditions than just if. So I want everybody to pick, everyone to write 3 different sufficient and necessary, or 3 conditional statements, but I want you to pick 3 different words to use here. And so this is where my elementary school teaching comes out, where it's easy to think that you know something, but when you actually have to apply it, that's a whole different level. So I want you to pick 3 different words and write 3 different conditional statements. And then once you're done, I'm going to send a Google Doc. I just had this idea and it might be a bad idea, so you can correct me, but I think it'd be cool if we took notes on a Google Doc so that we have, instead of putting them in the chat, then we have them for us to reference you have them to reference throughout the week too. So I'm going to put a Google Doc link in the chat and go ahead and type just go ahead and just add to it and just type your 3 conditional statements. Let's have a group doc going.
Nicole, we type in the chat box?
No, go to that Google Doc and type them into the
I'm typing there.
Yep.
Okay.
And don't worry about formatting. I can format it later. I just thought it would be helpful for us. So then we can just keep this document and reference it throughout the week.
I have no clue to get to where you're talking about, Nicole.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Do you see it in the chat? Did you go to the chat?
Oh.
And do you see the Google Doc link there?
Okay.
And it's like everyone's just it's a kind of a free for all typing right now, but that's totally okay.
If you can drop it in the chat, so make sure you check the chat. Are you on it? Let me see. I don't think so.
This is the sheet. Does everybody see it? Alcohol enables good times. All right, let's take 30 more seconds to finish this. All right, we had some really good ones. So we were gonna diagram these. I picked 3 out randomly. They're not. Let's diagram this first one together. So it says, every Christmas, Rachel gets a tracksuit. So Trish, what would be our sufficient condition for number 1?
Every.
Right, what would,
Christmas.
so if it's,
Christmas.
yes, Christmas, excellent. And Carolina, what would be our necessary condition?
Okay, say that again, please.
Carolina, what would be our, for number 1 here, what would be our necessary condition? If Christmas is our sufficient condition, what would be our necessary condition?
Tracksuit?
Yeah. So if it's Christmas, that is sufficient or triggers or enough to know that Rachel gets a tracksuit, right? So what is the contrapositive here, Phoebe?
If Rachel doesn't get a tracksuit, it's not Christmas.
Excellent. That doesn't mean that if she gets a tracksuit, it's Christmas, right? Every time you get a, like, I wish every time I got a tracksuit, I get to make Christmas happen, but that's not how life works, right? All right, so go ahead, everybody, and diagram number 2 and 3. I want you to diagram it and do the contrapositive. Oh, we have some hands. Cora, is your hand raised on purpose?
No.
All right, I'm gonna lower your hand.
Okay.
And then, oh no, Ms. Bet, would you like me to call you Ms. Bet, or what is your first name again?
No, don't call me Miss Beck. Call me Nikki.
Nikki, okay, I'm sorry. I remember that you're, okay, perfect, Nikki. Nikki, is your hand raised on purpose?
I think it was raised before.
Okay, I'm sorry. I will work on noticing hand raised in a more timely manner.
Yeah, so no, I'm not raising my hand.
All right, so Cora. Okay, so first I want to point out, only if, this is such an important one to remember, everybody. I'm gonna point out, like, so the first one that you walk away was knowing contrapositives. Second big takeaway today is if, the word if, it's just if, introduces a sufficient condition. Only if introduces a necessary condition. This happens all the time in logical reasoning. So I love, when I saw this was the first example I picked. So whose example is this?
Mine.
Oh, Selena, you're killing it. I love it. So, because no, practice this one. If there's one that you want to practice, it's this one. Only if introduces necessary conditions. So Derek, how did you diagram this one?
Let's see. Now you got me on this one. Let's see. I put for number 2, rain boots if it's raining. Not raining, no rain boots.
So rain boots, then wait, what's your sufficient condition?
Rain boot?
Yep. So rain boots, and then you said, so if I'm wearing rain boots, that's enough to know that it's raining, right?
Yeah.
And then what was your negation, or what was your contrapositive of that?
Not raining, no rain boots.
Awesome. And for those that might feel like this is a little bit basic for you, I want you to point out we're reviewing this is one, I didn't realize this until between my first LSAT and my second LSAT where I scored above the 170s. It was these minor details that made the difference that made me faster. It was like I felt like I had a good understanding of sufficient and necessary or conditional statements, but I didn't realize how quickly I could cross off answer choices by having a strong understanding of what introduces them or not. Just FYI, like a big picture. So if you feel like this is basic, really focus on this. So next time you approach an LR section, you're like, oh, this is really easy. I know this. Like for getting fast, like it's a key strategy to revisit to get faster. And then, so lastly, let's go ahead. I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Is it Kamani?
Yeah, you pronounced it right.
Oh, good. I got nervous. Kamani, so can you go ahead and do number 3 for us?
Yeah, so I did park, go to park, then play volleyball. And then if we don't play volleyball, then we didn't go to the park.
Awesome. Great job. Who feels like they have a super strong understanding of this now? Thumbs up. This is what I make the perfect. Great job. So this is probably going to be a little bit of review, so we don't need to do all of it. Has everybody seen this before? Or seen something like this before? We have to practice diagramming?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I feel like everyone does this when they're first start studying out for their LSAT, but then you never revisit it. So it's like you learn it like on week 1, but then when you actually start doing LR problems, you don't come back to practice it, which we just did a lot of this. So we don't need to go over this one. But I want us to focus on these for just a second. So what I would like everybody to do is to diagram all of these on your own. So you're going to diagram. And then you're going to I don't think I spelled that wrong. And then you're going to do the contrapositive for each one. And then go ahead and just give me a thumbs up when you're done. So I think if you go to participants, there's actually a thumbs up. If anybody feels like they would like more practice with diagramming, we now have a whole Google Doc of people that wrote conditional statements that you can practice on too. So if you ever want to go in and practice being quick at it, you can do it there as well. All right, so let's go back to here. Let's have Jasmine. Can you, okay, so everybody, if at the top where it's like my screen is shared, do you see where it says, I think it has like options or Zoom options or something, you can click on it and you can click annotate. Does everybody see that? So you can actually draw on my screen. So Jasmine, can you go ahead and do number 1 for us?
It won't. Hold on for a minute. Am I doing it right? Let me do it this way.
Yep, you're doing it right. I can see it.
It's like moving when I type.
Oh, try it once more.
Yeah. Okay. Let me try this again.
And then who would like to do number 2? Derek? Derek's on number 2. Who would like to do number 3? Cora's on number 3. Who would like to do number 4?
But I want to line through.
Taylor? Selena, you have number 5? Who wants to do number 6? Gina? And number 7? Phoebe.
I can do it. Okay.
Oh, sorry, guy. Okay, sorry, guy.
No, it's no worries. I didn't know how to like.
Oh yeah, I don't see your video, so I can't see if you're like raising your hand or anything. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was trying.
How do I do this?
Do you see where it says annotate? We get to go to like more options or something and click it.
More options, which is where?
It's at, I think it's at the top of your Zoom screen. It should be like in the middle. If you kind of like move your mouse, I think you can click on it and then hit like more options and it says annotate.
I'm so confused. You're saying in the middle of where?
Like of the shared screen, if you move your mouse around, does it say like more options anywhere?
Oh, few options. Request, oh, annotate. Gotcha. Thanks. Maybe not that thing. I don't know. I just didn't know if there was.
Nicole, how do I get it back to the drawing the letters? Because it's not, I was trying to erase.
If you go to draw,
okay,
click on it, you can click the little line.
Oh, it's not really for.
All right. So while they're finishing up for number 1, this did everybody get 1 and 2? So you can go ahead and check your own answers as we go through this. Were 1 and 2 pretty easy for everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's look at Cora's here. If L and C, then F.
Wait, I didn't get that for 1 and 2. I'm sorry.
If not L. Okay, so the contrapositive of if not.
So were we diagramming what it was saying? Or were we diagramming the contrapositive? Because I was diagramming the contrapositive.
It's okay. If you switch these two because of the wording, it's totally fine.
Oh, okay, then that was my confusion.
Yeah, because like technically the contrapositive, if not L, then C would be if not C, then L, but it's totally like you didn't see the instructions to the worksheet, so it's okay. But let's look at 3. if L and C, then F. So this means if we have L and C, that's sufficient for knowing that we have F, correct? And then our contrapositive of this is if we don't have F, then that means that we don't have L or C. So why is this important, that or?
That's how you reverse end.
Yeah, and yes. Because we might still have L or we might have C, right? It's just saying that if we don't have F, that means that we must not have one of them. Is everybody following that part?
Mhm.
Okay, number 4, if L or not C. So if we have L or we don't have C, then we don't have F. So how I actually write this is a little bit different. Who did number 4? Taylor? This is not wrong, but this is just my tip for on games. Is let's start with, I actually write if L. So I would write L because if introduces sufficient, right? So if L, then we have F. And then we have or not C. So I would actually write not C, then F. And the reason that I break this up into 2 is I think sometimes it's hard for our brains to grasp that when we're moving fast. So does everybody see what I did there about breaking it into 2? Because then, especially this really is helpful in games. Then if we have another L or a not C rule, we can just add it on here and don't have to worry about the twofold. And so here then, if we don't have F, how I typically write this is if we don't have F, that means that we don't have L. And I would write a little arrow here, which would mean that we do have C, right? If L or not C, then F. So if we have F, or we don't have F, then we don't have L and we don't have, and we have C. So do you see how mine's just a little bit different than yours? But it's saying the same thing, but it helps us go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on 5, 6, or 7? I'm sorry, did someone say anything?
Can you go over them?
Yes, I can. Absolutely. So one of the things that will be helpful after this class is I feel like we're at a little bit of different paces right now. And I know we're going over introductory stuff and we're going to get into question types, but give me feedback after this class of like if you thought it was too slow or too fast or too much review. Because I don't want to go too fast and I don't want to go too slow. And it might be me doing like a one-off class with some students just to catch people up to speed. But so far, is everybody feeling like we're going at a good pace? So?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go over 5. Okay, so if not L. So if introduces, once again, our sufficient condition, right? So if not L, and if not C, so we don't have both of these, then not F. I love how they wrote this because it's true. If we don't have L, then we don't have F. And if we don't have C, then we cannot have F. So that was perfect. And then the reverse of that is if we have F, then we must have L and C, correct? Does everybody have that one? Everybody see how we're switching whenever we go from the whenever, as we go from the normal conditional statement to the contrapositive, how we're switching the and the or. So let's really pay attention to that on number 6, where we have if L, then not F or C. So if we have L, then that means that we don't have F or we don't have C. Does that mean that we don't have both of them? No. So this really comes in common. This is way more useful for our games. We could have Derek teaching this class probably right now. So if you have anything to add, Derek, just let me know. You do use this on LR, which is why we're going over it, but you will really use it on games. So if we have L, that means that then we can't have F or C. And so if we're going to do the contrapositive, once again, we have to reverse it and flip it. So here, what does or switch to? Trish? And. Excellent. And so this means that if we have C and, oh, there it is. If we have C and we have F, we cannot have L. So do you see how we took that or and we switched it to the and? Because we cannot have both of these and have L. And then lastly, if L, then F and not C. So this is again one that I would write just a little bit differently. I would write it if L, then we have F. And not C. So once again, we have an and here. So and the opposite, if we're going to do the contrapositive, is an or. So if we have F, or if we don't have F, or we have C, then we cannot have L. All right, did everybody follow this? Would anybody like additional, not right now, but after class, or additional homework or resources on conditional statements and diagramming the basics? I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger because I know we're at all different levels when it comes to this. Jemmy?
Yeah, I would like to have a little bit more on the or and.
Yeah,
because that's the first time I'm seeing it.
Awesome. I can even make a little video too to send out for more information on that. Does anybody else want more information or additional homework to try on diagramming?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
I could always use a refresher.
Okay, I'll do that.
Refresher.
Perfect.
And maybe you could you just put it on that on your on our boot camp?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I have my list of notes of things to add. I'm like conditional statement, homework video, Jemmy, and or refresher. Yeah, so I'll keep my list, and then this afternoon I'll work on getting all that uploaded for everybody. And okay. And everybody give Katie a hard time for joining late.
I was convinced class started at 12. I've been literally sitting around doing nothing, Nicole. I'm so sorry. I feel so bad.
And she wants to be an attorney, people. I'm just kidding. That's something I would do, 100%. She took her LSAT last week, so she's still probably a little flustered. Okay. So now we're going to move on to must be true questions. Who has heard that on the LSAT there is a thing such as must be true questions? What is a must be true question? Katie, you're on the spot for coming late.
It's a question that has to be true and is fully supported by the text in the stimulus.
Absolutely. So here's a couple different question stems that we have based on the information above. Which one of the following must be true? The question stem is pretty, based on the stimulus, which answer choice must be true? But then here we have this fancy last one, which one of the following can be properly inferred from the passage above? Here we go, properly inferred. Once again, what does inferred mean on the LSAT?
Conclusion.
Conclusion, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to review this real quickly. So is must be true a top, or is must be true a bottom up question or a top down question?
Top down.
Top down.
Top down.
Top down. And so that means that we are going to be given, sorry, I have a lot up.
And you want weak or general answer choices.
Yes. So that means that we're going to be giving a stimulus. So I know people have differing opinions on this, but I am the biggest believer, especially those that want to score above 160, to read the stimulus first. My reason for this is if you read the stimulus first, it doesn't matter what question's going to be asked, you're going to know what to do with it. But what happens is people tell me all the time, well, I read the question stem first because then I know what to look for. What I think happens when you do that is you're thinking about two things at the same time. You're thinking about the question and you're thinking about the stimulus. And that can be a little bit confusing. Like you're confusing yourself because you're not paying attention to the details at the level that you should be because you're worried about the question. But what I say is if you understand the stimulus, no matter, like if you understand the stimulus and you don't miss any of the details, then does it matter what question you're asked? If you understand it, you're going to be able to answer it, correct? Fair? So
Yes.
here is a question that we have. Who would like to, Derek, I won't have, actually, I'll read the first one, but here's the first stimulus we're going to do together. But first thing is, what does many mean on the LSAT?
Many things.
Many things. Many means many things. Is many a strong or weak word?
Weak.
Weak. Yes, it means at least one. Not as much as some means at least one, but many is a weak word. Like we don't really know what many means. Many means many things. Where what does most mean?
More than 50.
50.
More than 50%. Yep. Excellent. So on the LSAT, this is how I read a stimulus. Many, so loose, many successful graphic designers began their career after years of formal training. Although a significant number learned their trade more informally on the job. Okay, so this is what I call sitting on a sentence. After I read a sentence, even sometimes I stop at a comma, I let my brain catch up. I struggle with reading comprehension, and if I just read a stimulus straight through, I don't gather it all. So what this is pretty much saying is there's many successful graphic designers that started their career after formal training. However, there's a significant number that learned their trade just kind of by just starting and doing it, right? More informally. But no designer ever became successful who ignored the wishes of a client. Everybody, I don't believe in diagramming on the actual test, but I do believe in diagramming in blind review. I take that back. I might diagram one question on the actual test, but for review purposes, how would you diagram this last sentence here? Go ahead and do it on your own on a piece of paper. All right, Selena, how did you diagram it?
I don't know if I did it right though, but I'll show you.
Okay.
I put, here's no draw. Sorry, can you see this thing? So I said, I don't know if this is right, but I put client wishes. That's like supposed to be like a client, and then I put client wishes. So this is basically saying like if they go with the client's wishes, then
if they what the client wishes?
If they go with the client wishes, like they accept the client's wishes, then the designer is successful. And then I did the opposite if the designer is not successful. But I could have done it backwards, so that's why I was.
Does everybody agree with this?
No.
No, okay. Not, no, I don't want to put you under the bus, Selena, but this is a
No,
very
that's fine. I said I didn't know.
safe space, right? Who has a different way that they did? You're close. You just forgot one thing, or you left an important thing out. Who did it differently?
I did it where I put, if you're a successful designer, then you don't ignore the wishes of the clients.
Yes, ignore clients. You do not ignore clients' wishes. So do you see what this is what Selena did was what we call the reversal. She said that if you don't ignore the wishes, so if you follow the client wishes, you will be successful. But that's not correct, because just following the client's wishes is not enough to guarantee that we're going to be successful, right? All we know is that if you do happen to be a successful designer, that must mean that you did not ignore the client's wishes, because you can't be successful if you did. So our contrapositive, what's our contrapositive here, Trish?
So you ignore them, then you're not successful.
Excellent. If you do ignore the client's wishes, then you are not successful. Excellent. Does everybody follow that?
I guess where I get confused is when the no kind of throws me off. So I initially had successful with a line through it saying no for negating it. And then I said, ignore wishes of client. So I didn't do like the line, you understand what I'm saying?
Right, yes, but no designer ever became successful who ignored the wishes of a client. So this is where we have to think about it critically, right? No designer became successful. So what I switch that to is, if you are successful, what must you not have done? Because no designer that has became successful has done this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's hard. Like it's not, there's not like some special trick here. No designer ever became successful. So you have to literally, if you became successful, you cannot do this. You just have to really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I can tell what's sufficient and necessary, but then it's like those words throw me off.
No,
not no, but like this one.
Yeah, no, but did it throw you off where you got to think about it, or did it throw you off to the point you got it wrong?
I got it wrong because I had the sufficient, but I put the line through saying no through designer becomes successful.
Okay,
I negated it.
Yep, so what we have to pay attention to here is, what are we saying about but no designer? This is not what introduces the sufficient condition, right?
Okay.
Ever is what introduces it.
Gotcha.
So ever introduces the sufficient. So if successful, this no is applying to the necessary, right?
Okay.
Or you could even switch this if you wanted to and say not successful. Well, no, you couldn't do that. Just kidding. I take that back. And we'll keep going over this though, and so I can give you a better explanation as well. All right. So go ahead, everybody, go ahead and answer this one and put your answer in the chat. Oh, Gaia, sorry, we have some questions. Gaia?
Yeah. So I don't know if this is very relevant at this moment, but I'm still gonna take advantage and ask. So I did start reading, because I read the loophole, and I think we talked about this, and I did start reading stimulus first and then do the answer choice. What threw me off at first is, especially in the older ones, some inference questions almost have a conclusion. So like I started having difficulty, and I was like, well, unless I see the question stem, I can't determine if this is an inference, an argument. And then I slowly fell back into the old question stem and then stimulus. And I think that's why I never really made any advancement, because I do see like how you can get better from stimulus first. So I just want to see, how did you like overcome that? Like, how did you,
No,
you
that's
know, always.
a great question. And what I do is I read the stimulus first, I understand it, and then I read the question. So if it has, so for example, this is actually a great point to do it. So let's say we just read our stimulus here. If I was unsure if it had a conclusion, instead of wasting time thinking about it, I would just read the question stem quickly and I would see the word statement. And the second that I see the word statement, I know that it doesn't have a conclusion.
Oh, so you said, I'm sorry, you said if you were unsure, or you did it on
unsure. Like, so if I was
unsure.
if I was unsure, because sometimes I easily can tell that it has a conclusion and I don't need to read the question stem. Like if I easily tell. So
Okay, got it.
Yes. Above or true, which of the following must also be true? So must be true questions doesn't have a conclusion, right?
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think that's a great question. And then Nikki, do you have a question as well?
Well, it was about diagramming. I diagrammed mine differently. But then, yeah, so I just diagrammed mine differently.
For this one?
Yeah.
Okay, how did you diagram this one?
So I put D, then I drew a line through it, and then I put an arrow, S, if, and then I said ignore CW.
Okay, so your D, what we could say here, for people that are getting caught up but no designer, what if we said, instead of just saying designer, we said successful designer? Because are we talking about designers? Or are we talking about, is it just any designer? Because we're not saying you're not a designer. We're saying successful designer, correct? So what if, for Trish and Nikki, what if you would have put designer just with successful? Do you think you would have gotten it correct? If you would have viewed them as one subject?
Yes.
I think I just missed the ever. I mean, I knew it's sufficient, but I think I didn't follow what came behind the ever. My issue was.
Okay, cool. Because I think what Nikki is more so like you almost made designer its own condition, like its own condition, and it's not. It's like it's that this is where the LSAT writes really funky, where we're talking about all we care about is successful designers, right? We don't care about all designers. All right, now we're going to go to this question. Go ahead and answer this one and put your answer in the chat.
I don't know this answer.
Nicole?
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I can't put my answer in the chat. Oh, never mind. I got it.
Okay, perfect.
No, it's not working. It says I cannot chat. I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, did you have B or C? We'll just put you on the
B.
spot. B? Okay. All right, we have a debate. We have a B team and a C team. I'm really proud. So one of the most important things on must be true questions is to be able to cross off wrong answer choices. So must be true. We know that this is a top down. Do we tend to want a strong or mild answer? Katie?
Weak.
Weak. Oh, I like that. Weak. We want weak or mild. Why do we want that? Taylor, why do we want mild?
I guess I'm not really sure why, like, I know we want mild, but I guess I'm not really sure why.
No, I'm glad that you say that. Mel, why do you think we want mild?
Keeps it general. Safe.
Safe.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I think we want mild because it's like it's something that's gonna be directly from the stimulus. So, it's kind of like you don't want to go extra.
Yeah. So top-down questions, we have to stay between the lines. So, for example, if I said it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. Does it have to be true that all people like ice cream? Or some people like ice cream? What must be true? All or some? All? Who said all?
I think it's some, because some is at least one, right?
Yeah, some is at least one. Must it be true that every single person wants to get ice cream for us to go get ice cream? No. But at least one person needs to like ice cream, right? So that's why must be true questions. We want a more mild answer choice.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, no, great. So I want us to think through, rather than just doing a bunch of questions, I want us to really understand the logic behind question types so that we can think for ourselves while we're practicing. So I'm really proud that nobody picked A. Derek, why is A wrong?
Well, all graphic designers who are unsuccessful have ignored the wishes. It's almost like it's backwards.
Yes, it's saying if you're unsuccessful, that means that you have ignored the wishes, which you could be unsuccessful without ignoring the wishes. Maybe you're just a bad designer. Maybe you listen to the client's wishes. You're just not good at your job.
And then like all was so extreme. Like
yes, do we see that?
So
yes.
Extreme.
Okay, so B and C. Who wants to defend B?
Me.
All right, go for it. Tell us why you think B is correct.
Well, because it's very easy to prove. It says not all. So I think it could be like some. So like we could easily say that one who's formally trained is not ignoring wishes, because it does say many successful graphic designers learned their trade on the job. So it's really easy to prove that at least some of them don't ignore the wishes. Because if we know that,
okay. So now who wants to defend? We're going to come back to that. Well, who wants to defend C? Because a mass majority picks C. Nobody wants to defend their answer? Mel, Nikki, Selena, Cora, Trish, Gina.
Here's the thing. I was between B and C.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
So I wavered as well, but the only reason why I chose C was because of the question type. So I kind of thought about backing my way into the answer instead of just being like overly strong. So the more attentive a graphic designer is to a client's wishes, the more likely the designer is to be successful. So I was thinking of us diagramming, but no designer ever became successful who ignored a client's wishes. So I figured that to support it, that the designer would have to be more attentive in order for that person to be more likely successful. So that's the way that I was thinking about it.
So let's look at, so this is like a lesson within a lesson here. more likely, is this an absolute or relative term?
Relative.
Relative. What does relative mean? Relative is whenever something is based on its relation to something else. So if we had two people and one was 4'10" and one was 4'11", and we said person B is taller than person A, does that make person B tall?
No.
No, it just makes, so this saying person B is taller than person A is a relative statement, correct? Because we're saying B is taller relative to person A. Where what is an absolute statement?
Person B is
Nicole
a
is smart.
Nicole is smart. Yes, Nicole is smart. That would be an absolute statement. Where if I said Nicole is smarter than Katie, that's relative. Like maybe Katie's not very smart. So me being smarter than her, maybe she gets like a 0, maybe she gets like a 101 on the LSAT and I get a 102. Like just because I score higher than Katie doesn't necessarily mean that I'm smart, right? But if I just said Nicole is smart, that is an absolute term. So is our statement an absolute statement or is it a relative statement?
It's
The
absolute.
but no designer, that one?
Yes.
Oh, that's
It's
an
absolute.
absolute.
Yes. Does everybody see why this is an absolute statement? We're not saying that, we're not basing our success on the level that you will listen to a client. We're saying either you're successful because you did not do this. We're not saying it's not, there's no in between. So C is incorrect here because it's a relative statement. Do we all see that? So even though it's likely to be true, and you would think it, right? Because in common sense world, C makes sense. But in LSAT world, we have no idea that the more attentive a graphic designer is, the more likely the designer is to be successful. What if they are very attentive, but they still are bad at their job? What if they're like, have you ever had someone that's just so nice and you want to support them, but they're just bad at their job, where you're like, I really don't want to pay you money to do this? Like imagine like your hairstylist. Like if you have a hairstylist and they're like the kindest person, but they keep messing up your hair. Like you're not going to keep going back to them, right?
Nicole, I have a question.
Yes.
So if like for C, would you, because I know for me and you have discussed it, I have the need to like assume sometimes. So it's like C would be like that assumption that they are successful. Okay.
We're assuming it's for people that picked it. You took it too far. Because it logically makes sense. You would think that the more attentive you are, the more likely you are to be successful. However, we have to pay attention to, is that what it's really telling us? And my example goes back to the hair, where is the more attentive a hairstylist is, the more likely they are to be successful. I mean, they might be the kindest person there, but that doesn't mean they're going to be good at doing my hair, right? But if they're not attentive, like if my hairstylist is not attentive, then they have no chance of being good at doing my hair, right? Is that making a little bit of sense? Yes. All right, Nikki or Jasmine, what are your questions?
I have no question. I plan on.
I asked mine. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so it is 12:30. I have some questions for everybody. I am willing, like if you want, what I was thinking is I'm going to send some questions in the chat here in a document.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Alma.
So since the stimulus was absolute, I'm kind of trying to reiterate everything. Does the answer have to be absolute? Does it have to match? Is that what's happening might be?
I don't want to go so far to say that it has to match. However, It's a reason why it could be wrong, more so. Like if I was debating between B and C.
Okay, okay.
All
And
right.
Nicole, I was gonna say like another thing I've seen too, like I guess like now that I'm looking at it, like the text never said nothing about like the attentiveness of the graphic designers. You see what I'm saying? Could that be a reason, like because
Oh,
like
absolutely, yeah.
like must be true, like it never said anything about that. Okay.
Right.
Now I'm looking at it like, okay, great.
Like more attentive, where it's just saying you either ignore them or you listen, right? There's not about like how much you listen. It's either you either listened or you didn't.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
So what I'm going to do is I just sent a worksheet in the chat. What we can do is week 1, you can be done for today if you would like, but also we can take like a 15-minute break, and whoever wants to come back and go and do some more of these questions and some of the review, I'm going to come back in like 15 minutes for like another half hour. But you also can be done for today as well if you don't want to come back. Does that make sense?
Nicole, I can't
track.
I can't download the paper.
Yeah, I didn't even get it.
And
Is it in the chat?
Yes, it just sent.
Let's see.
I have it. It just is giving me other things,
No
and I
worries.
can't save it.
I'll share the link.
Okay. I think it's because it's my work computer. That's kind of goofy.
All right, I sent a link to the Google Doc as well. I'm gonna put stuff in the on the folder, and I'll send out a detailed email of homework as well. And I'll record the next part too. So if you want to leave, I can just send out the video. But I just feel like we didn't get as far today as I had wanted. So if we want to take a 15-minute break and come back and keep going, we absolutely will. What are people's thoughts on that?
I would like to come back and do more questions.
Same here.
Okay.
Me
And
too.
I can record it for people that don't have time. I know like I want to like respect people's times, and I know people don't want to miss things, but I can record it and we can still questions. I just feel like we didn't get as far today as I had hoped, mainly because I probably talked too much setting everything up. But
Nicole, I gotta take off soon. So will that recording just be in the mass email that you send with us?
I will communicate like I don't want to. I probably will put it on the website. I will send it.
Okay, so just in the Bootcamp resources?
Yes, and I'll send that in an email.
I can just look for it there if that's.
Yes.
Easier. Okay.
And the big thing for homework, if you're not going to come back, is this document that I just sent. Practice it. We're probably not going to go over it. Maybe like one we'll go over on Tuesday, but also practice test 45, LR section 1. And I'll send that out, and I'm going to put it on the classroom too. I'm going to do that all this afternoon. I just wasn't sure how quick the class would move.
Gotcha.
But if you're coming back, go ahead and take your 15-minute break. But if you're planning to not come back, if you want to stay and ask some questions while people are taking their break, you're welcome to do that as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I gotta take off, but I just got.
Bye, Taylor.
Thank you, guys. I gotta go as well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I just had a question about diagramming, like, because I know you mentioned you do it more for blind review.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you do it more so for must be true questions, or are there other ones like either necessary?
You do it for just any conditional statement.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason that I do it during blind review and not during an actual test is I think people are very likely to mess up diagramming.
Yeah.
We'll mess it up all the time, and that's why I don't diagram on the test. But I think it's great to practice in blind review because it makes you quicker on the actual test of recognizing it.
Okay.
And so it's just really good, like breaking down the basics.
Yeah.
Nicole, I actually have a question. So with the must be true, so just to kind of recap a little bit. So there are a set of statements. There is no conclusion. And I know you highlighted that section about that stated, but no designer ever became successful who ignored the wishes of a client. Would it be best, because I know in the beginning you diagram, would that be best if we do the same when we see those type of statements?
No, not during the actual test. We'll talk about that more as we go. So I don't want to confuse you. I just wanted to point one out. Conditional statements are, some people teach diagramming as the end all be all. Like every time you see conditional statements diagram, I don't recommend doing that because I think you're likely to mess it up. But as we're introducing some questions and pointing it out, I want to show you what it looks like, because I think sometimes when you diagram, it's easier to visually see what's happening, although you're not going to diagram when you're actually taking the test. Not as much as you, like some people teach.
Okay. Okay, so it's not really, we don't really need it, because I've never diagrammed for a stimulus, but for logic games I do all the time.
Yes. So there are probably one or two questions on LR section you will diagram.
Okay. And since the answer was B, it didn't necessarily, it didn't, since there's no conclusion in the stimulus, it didn't necessarily pull the very last statement. It was just, I guess, a combination within the stimulus.
Yes, correct. You could conclude it based on the two facts in the stimulus.
Got it. Okay. And then after this break, you're just going to go over more examples?
We're going to do we're going to go over more must be true examples, the ones that I send in the document.
Awesome. All right. I think I'm done for today. I'm going to get breakfast because it's almost 10 o'clock in LA. So
yeah, no worries. I will record it for people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was very helpful.
Okay, great. I want feedback. Email me feedback, text me feedback, what was good, what you didn't like, because I'm not offended, because I want to get, like, this was my first time teaching the LSAT in this format for this large of a, like, you know, not just people I normally work with. So like I have areas to grow in as well.
All right. Awesome. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
So I'm going to go ahead and put us on pause. Remind me when we come back to continue recording, everybody. Says I'm recording. Okay. I put on my website for everybody to see. So under part 1, I went ahead and added, which I will put the video from class in here as well. These are 2 documents. If you've done one-on-one tutoring with me, you're familiar with them. These are the questions by type that I'll refer to. So whenever you have to drill questions, I'm not going to tell you what exact questions you need to drill. You can pick what level of questions you want to do based on your own personal difficulty. And then I put a video, everyone knows Ben Olson's my favorite, from his YouTube channel, just to review Inference first Flaw. And I also put a conditional statement video on here as well that you can watch for review if you would like. I can put some more resources on like homework to practice too. But our homework for Tuesday is to do practice test 45, LR section 1, untimed. I forgot to mention that previously, untimed. You won't have to do the must be true, most strongly supported worksheet, because that's what we're going to work on now. And then it says drill must be true and most strongly supported questions from LRBT2 or LBT3 document above. That is this document. And so you, once again, like say you do 10 of each on Monday, you get to pick the questions. Like I'm not going to tell you the level of difficulty to do. That's like just for you to continue to practice. And then if you have not watched the main conclusion video, you can watch this one. It's like 8 minutes long and drill 10 main conclusion questions. And also, if you want to review on some of those basics, I can put my other parts of an argument video here for you to review on too, because we will cover main conclusion briefly on Tuesday. And then for your PT 45 LR1 results, we're not going to go over this one on Tuesday. I don't think we are. But what you can do is put your name, your questions correct. And then I'd like you to put the questions that you missed, so you can just select it. And then also put the questions that you flagged. So even if you got it correct, but you flagged it, I want you to mark it so I know which ones people struggled with the most, and then you'll just submit it. And this is how I'll keep track of everybody's results. And so whenever we review questions, so what I'm going to do is I am going to have some one-off classes to review sections, but instead of reviewing each section, I'm going to take out some of the most missed questions and then add them to that lesson. For whenever we learn about sufficient assumption questions, I'm going to pull them. But if a lot of people miss like a must be true or most strongly supported question, those will be our icebreakers for next class. So that's how I'm going to use the time sections. But the goal of this is to be doing section work and drilling simultaneously. Does this homework make sense?
Yes.
And this is in addition to whatever else you're doing. But I just to add some organization to what will help prepare you for the next class. Is this helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
Nicole, can I ask you, I know I can look quickly online, but what time is the class on Tuesday? What time is boot camp on Tuesday?
7 to 9 Eastern time. So 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Because I'm going to miss that, but you and I can talk about that later.
And yep, and it's going to be recorded too for you.
Okay.
Good, everybody good there? All right, so does everybody have the document pulled up of question types?
I'm sorry, Nicole.
Yes, Gaia.
I'm on the page. I'm sorry. I'm on the page. Well, I just got locked off real quick. Give me a second. I have to reopen it.
And what did you want us to pull up, Nicole? The page that.
Well, did everybody have the boot camp class, like the questions that I sent?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you sent it in
sent
the chat, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. We're good.
Okay. So now I need to go back to where my slides are. Did I exit out of it? Sorry, I think I exited out of my slides. Okay. So what is the difference between must be true questions and most strongly supported questions? Mel, do you know?
Okay, you said must be true questions and most strongly supported questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think most strongly supported questions, kind of like what we discussed earlier, is more like, I guess like it guarantees like 90% that the argument is valid. And it must be true, kind of like has to be like, it's like needed in order for the argument to be valid.
Must be true questions, the ones that we just did, are 100%, like they must be true based on what was said in the statement, where most strongly supported is like 95% true. I handle them the exact same way, but some people that are very attentive to detail do notice a little bit of a difference. I don't, like I handle them the same way and I don't really struggle with it, but some people are like, well, how do you know about this? And that's where eliminating wrong answer choices really comes into play, because on must be true and most strongly supported, it's especially when we get to the difficult ones, crossing off the wrong answer choices is just as important as finding the correct answer.
Someone says they can't hear.
Oh, who cannot hear?
Gia or
Gaia.
Sorry.
She must have left and maybe she can't, maybe she'll come back.
Okay, I'm back in.
All right, can you hear now?
Yeah, sorry, something happened.
All right, let's see what the chat says. Okay, check your computer volume. I do. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, everybody, do this one silently on your own and put your answer in the chat. Awesome job, everybody. Oh, everyone got, okay, perfect. So most serious students are happy students and most serious students go to graduate school. What does most mean?
More than 50, right?
More than 50%, excellent.
Mhm.
So since more than 50%, so let's say it's 51 students, at least 51, 51, if there were 100 students, 51 of them would be happy students, right? If there's, sorry, if I say one, if there's 100 serious students, 51 of them for sure are happy and 51 of them have to go to graduate school, correct?
Mhm.
So when I read that, what we know is there at least is one that is overlapped, correct? There's at least one student that is happy and goes to graduate school because it can't be most if that's not the case, correct? Do we all see that?
Yes.
Awesome. And then we say all students who go to graduate school are overworked. So if you go to graduate school, that means you're overworked. And so was it pretty easy for everybody to get to B, or were there any answer choices that we were debating?
I got B. Oh, sorry.
No, go
for it. So I got B, but I don't know, like I diagrammed it. And I know you said you're not a big fan of diagramming. Would diagramming in this case be okay? Like
Yes. Gaia, if you're comfortable diagramming, you diagram away. Unless I notice you're making mistakes because of it. You if that's what you're taught and you're comfortable, you do it. I just don't overly teach. I don't overly promote it because I think it confuses a lot of people.
could I share in the chat how I did it so you can let me know if it's like
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, of course. And I'll look at it after, but yeah. So must be true. We want a week. Oh, someone, I'm gonna mute you guys. I think you have some background noise going on. But were there any answer choices here that people were struggling with to cross off?
I liked the A at first, but then I was like, it's a little extreme. Because like,
So this is when it comes to speed. For us that want to get faster on the LSAT, we don't get faster by rushing through stimuluses and guessing and bouncing around. We get faster by crossing off wrong answers quickly.
mhm,
And so most overworked students are happy students. So most overworked students, do we even know who overworked students are?
right.
One, it's strong, and I don't like that.
Mhm.
And two, we're talking about serious students. We're not just talking about overworked students.
Right.
And so like maybe most overworked students, like maybe these are kindergartners that are overworked in their kindergartner class and they are not happy. They want to go home and they do not want, like, I think it's ridiculous how much homework elementary students get. They are in school 8 hours a day. They do not need 3 hours of homework at night. Big believer in it. So they're not happy. Anyways, good on this question? Okay,
Yeah.
so does everybody have the document that I sent previously? The one that I referenced to?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 4 must be true questions on there. I'm gonna put us into groups of 3 and we're gonna answer all 4 questions together. So what you're going to do is there's 4 questions, so rotate. One person's going to read the stimulus out loud and explain it sentence by sentence. So people that have been in my class before, you know how to do it. And then everybody answer it individually and then discuss it. Okay, there's only 4 questions though. So we're just doing the first 4. The first 4 must be true questions. If someone wants, you can have one person share their screen once we get to that part. I need to. 2.